This conference will now be recorded.
So yeah, let me log into my control plane node and let's execute the commands for the next topics. So yesterday we have seen creating the pod, and we have seen how to create a single container pod and multi-container pod. Okay, in the single container pod, you have seen that everything goes smooth. Like you have added some simple parameters for Nginx, and that's how the application has been run. And in multi-container, we have seen how to use a shared volume and common network. Okay, a common network, we have not seen an example like how exactly if two containers are listening on the same port and what could happen, that we have not seen. We will see today. But yesterday we have seen what is a common network, sorry, shared storage, and we have seen how the data can be shared among the nodes, among the containers. Okay, so that is what we have seen. Now let me try to explain something about beyond that. So let me expand the screen. So always whenever you boot your machine once again after it is shut down, just verify your nodes are up and ready. Just execute kubectl get nodes. I can see my status of the nodes are ready. Okay. So with that, I can go ahead and I can execute few commands. So let us see what we have to do right now. So if you try to see this documentation, what we have done yesterday, you can see we took this example yesterday, and what we have done is nothing but we have created multi-container where one container is responsible for serving the data and one container is responsible in injecting the data. Okay, so one is injecting the data and one is serving the data, and these two containers are sharing a same volume called volume type which we are using here. So let us see what is this volume, where it gets created, and what is the path. So let us try to understand. Okay, I think yesterday I have not explained about this, so let us try to see right now. So I'll be recreating the same container, sorry, same pod, and we will see how we can visualize this particular volume, what is empty there and how it looks. Okay, so going back to the node, let me verify if that I have deleted or not. kubectl get pod -o void. So I have deleted it, so let me recreate. So that YAML file is existing in my directory, um, in the manifest folder called pods. Okay, in that I have already created multi-container YAML. Okay, just execute this command, automatically it will create my multi-container because yesterday I have written this, right? Okay, same example. So kubectl get pod -o void. Now you can see your containers are in running ready state and your pod is in running state. So nothing, everything is assigned. You can see the IP address and you can see the node on which this particular pod has been assigned. Okay, now if you try to curl this, I need to get the data what my container is trying to write the data into my index.html. Nginx also should give me the same information. Why? Because they two are sharing the same index.html. Okay, now you can see. So the intention is it is running a while loop, like a shell script. Okay, what it is trying to do, for every 10 seconds it is trying to write the date command output. See, if you normally execute a date command in a shell, you get like this, right? So this command output it is trying to write in a file called index.html. Okay, it is appending the data. Okay, so that is how it is trying to do. Okay, done. Now let us try to understand with this volume section. Okay, always you have to remember this volume section mtdir is nothing but on which node this particular pod is assigned. On that particular node you have to see that. So on which node this particular pod is assigned, it is assigned to the compute plane one. Since I have only one node, it is pretty easy to understand. Okay, now I have only this particular node, so this node, it is launched on this node. If it is another node, it would have shown me what node is that. Okay, so it is launched on this particular node, so I have to go to that node. There is a special path to identify my volume here. Before that, we have to do one thing. I need to get the UID of my unique ID of my pod. How I can get it? Let's see. Execute kubectl get pod hyphen the pod name is what is the pod name? Sorry, get pod. Yeah, nginx hyphen pod. Nginx. I want to see the pod information in YAML format. Okay, so hyphen o output the pod information in YAML. That's what we are trying to say. If you say hyphen o YAML, it will print in YAML format. If you say JSON, it will print in JSON format. Okay. Now from here, I want to see my pod information, which is like if I scroll down a bit, okay. So here I can understand my UID. Where is that? Here it is. Okay. So this is a unique ID which is assigned for pod. Every pod will have a unique ID. Okay. Random unique ID which has been generated. So take this particular UID. This will helpful for us to identify our pod. So go to the compute plane node since it is launched on that particular node. So go to that particular node. Okay, I'm just logged in. So let me switch to the root. So let me enlarge the screen. Yeah. So now remember all your pod information. If you doesn't know about the pod and how it is getting stored, where it is mounted and all, just give df-h command. You will see a lot of information. Okay. In that, if you want to filter your pod related information, just give grep and the ID. Okay, you can see the path, right? So this is your volume path. Simple, right? To understand, this is how it is. Okay, but this is not your data which is stored. From here it will change. Okay, so but this is the path. So always remember where lib kubelet is a path where your pod related volume information will be stored. If you are using mtdir and all, mtdir. Okay, if you are using a volume type called mtdir, then like this. Okay, mtdr, the volume type which I'm using right now is mtdr. Mtdr is, represents a temporary directory that shares a pod life cycle. Okay, what is a temporary directory that shares a pod life cycle? In the sense, this volume will be available until your pod is available. Okay, if I delete my pod, automatically this volume will get deleted. Okay, so that's the reason this is called as ephemeral storage. This is called as ephemeral storage. So when you save some data into this particular path in this volume, the data will be available if container is restarted inside the container of, or it is recreated inside the pod. Nothing will happen to the volume. Okay, if this container or if this container is restarted inside the pod, nothing will happen to your volume. In that particular view, in point of view, it is like persistent volume. But if you look at your pod level, if your volume is deleted, sorry, if your pod is deleted, your volume is also deleted automatically. Okay, so that's the reason it is called as ephemeral, and this volume is a life cycle of the pod. It depends upon the life cycle of the pod. Okay, so that's how they have written the point here. If you want, you can just read and understand about this particular documentation. Okay, but now coming to the point, so I identified the path by using df-h command. I could see that it is a tempfs mount. That's the reason it is tempfs type, mount type. Okay, and you can see where lib kubelet and pods and the pod ID and the volumes. Okay, so let me go to that particular path. Okay, You can see here, this is a volume called mtdir. You can see there the naming convention. Kubernetes.io is common. From there, you can see mtdir. Okay. So whatever the name you have assigned to your volume, the name nginx-storage, right? With that name only a directory will be created. You can see there. Okay. So go inside that particular directory, then you can see your index.html. Okay. So this index.html, it will be shared to your containers inside the pod. Okay. So this is how it happened. So if you pick your pod, let's assume that this is your pod. Okay. I have run two containers inside the pod. Okay. Now there is a volume which is created. Okay. Now this volume, okay. So this, since this volume is utilized by both the containers, right? So this volume is like Ubuntu container and this is like Nginx. Okay. So in this Ubuntu container, it has mounted a directory called var/temp. Okay. It mounted this particular directory and here it is mtdir volume. Okay. So mtdir volume. Okay. What does it mean? What will be the path? So the path will be by default var lib kubelet. Okay. Kubelet and then pods and the ID of the pod, and that's how it is. Okay, so that's where you can see your volumes. Okay, ID slash volumes. Okay, so this is the path where it is. So now whatever you store under this particular directory, that will get visible in this particular path. Since this particular path is this volume is also mounted to this particular container, so on which particular path it is mounted inside the container, it is user share, okay, nginx/html. Now what will happen, whatever you do under this particular directory, will the same content will be available in this particular nginx container as well in this path. Why? Because both are sharing the same volume. Whatever you store here, this will be visible under this particular container as well. If you remember, we have seen like how to attach a volume to multiple containers, right? Volume mount, similar to that same concept. Okay, just you are trying to modify it, that's it. Okay, so this is how it is. This is what we have done right now. Okay, so that's the reason this is called a shared storage. The pods will have a shared storage. Now let us say what is a common network. Common network in the sense, now what, how many containers you create, for that those containers will share a common network namespace. They don't have a different namespace for network. For others, we have a different namespace for process ID, for mount, for other things it has a separate namespace. But these two containers will share the same namespace for networking. Okay, that's one thing you have to remember. So which means that both the containers will communicate with each other on localhost IP address. Localhost IP address. Okay, so which means that if my let's say this is one more web application or some other things, if I need to ping to this particular application, then I need to use localhost colon 80 port number. By default it is 80, so just I have mentioned it. Let's say there is an application running inside this particular Ubuntu with Tomcat or something like that. If this container should communicate to that particular Tomcat, it should use localhost and the Tomcat port number will be by default 8080. So this is how it is. If this is not true, let me try to prove that. Okay, is that true or not? Why it is called as shared network and shared storage and common network. Okay, common network in the sense simple. Every pod will have a namespace. In that namespace only, these two containers will be using it for a network. Okay, that's the reason. So in that pod namespace only, you will have localhost and the IP address of the pod. Okay, so that's the reason. So let us I go back and what I want to do is I will delete this particular pod right now and I will recreate with the same application. Okay, or else let's create another application. Okay, I will say like common network. Okay, dot YAML, so that we can understand by looking at the name, right? Yeah. First, what we need to write? API version. Okay. Then I will be using v1 as a API version. Kind is nothing but pod. Okay. And then I'll show you a simple example. Half of the job, if you want that to be done, so what you can do is nothing but kubectl, okay, run, okay, run, and you can give the name what you want to create. Let's say test hyphen pod, okay, and then hyphen hyphen image. Let's say I want to use nginx colon latest, for example, okay, and then hyphen hyphen try hyphen run, okay, is equal to client hyphen 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 o YAML. Then I'm trying to redirect. If I execute this, what will happen? Just a second. Sorry, my bad. I need to give equal to here. Okay. So what it will do is nothing but it will generate a sample YAML file for this particular command. Generally, if I don't give this, what will happen? It will show you how the container will get created. If I remove this whole thing, it will create a container like this. It looks like this actually if you try to pick the YAML. Okay, now this commands will be useful when you're writing your CK exam or CKS exam, because the time limit is too less to complete the exam. Totally you will get 16 questions. In order to clear that 16 questions, 2 hours as per me, it's enough for CKA exam. For CKS exam, it is really tough. Okay, it's impossible to so for some of the people it is impossible if you don't have a time management. Okay, so in those cases this will help you to simplify your job. Now most of the cases the YAML file was written, just we have to modify according to our requirement. If you want to create as per the question in the CK exam, they ask you to create a pod with a simple container like with specific image and specific name and specific pod name. Then you have to modify these things. That's it, right? Your job is done. Okay, you can see as a dry run it will tell you what it is trying to do. Okay, this will show you the YAML format of it. Okay, that's all. Now I want to save this particular output into a file. Okay, pods, let's say common network.yaml. Okay, it's how it is now. It's saved into a file which will like my half of the job is done. I will open this. This is not needed for me. This is fine. You can see automatically label is also added like that. So this is how the label looks. Labels are nothing but an additional naming given to that particular pod to filter. Okay, the intention is simple. Let's say you have different types of applications you have deployed. For all the applications you have given one common label. For all databases you have, every database is a different name, every pod has a different name, but all those databases pods you have given some common label. Okay, so when you're using a common label, if you want to filter all the pods which comes under that particular label, this labels will help you a lot. Okay, so that's the reason. It is not mandatory, but it might be useful for you to filter or to do some additional task. Okay, DNS policy is cluster first. You can think about that later, and you can see here there is a restart policy. Restart policy is always. It means that for whatever the reason, if it got failed, it will try to restart it. There is one more never, and there is one more called on failure, which you already know about that. Okay, resources, we are not doing anything. Let it keep it empty. We are using nginx. I will write one more container specifications, name. Okay, let's say here instead of test pod, I will give something like first, some name, right? So let's give like first, and here I will give like second pod. The naming it's up to me. Okay, and then image, same image or any other different tag, but application is the same. Both will use the same port number, right? Done. Now what will happen? Let's see. Okay, if I try to create this, what will happen? Let us see. So kubectl create -f pods common net. So this is created successfully, but let's see the status. Pod -o. You can see it's running. Where is it? You can see it is showing you running, but doesn't mean that it is running actually. Why? I will tell you. It will take some time. See, after the container pod is created, it will show you the running state. That's fine. But I told you that you have to keep eye on this particular this particular section as well, ready status. Now it is showing you 2 out of 2 containers are ready. Okay, you might think that yes, my application is running, but it doesn't mean that. Why? Because if you stay here, it is restarts. It is restarted one time. So something happened. So that's the reason it got restarted. Now the status is ready. Okay. Why? Because I will tell you. After the container is created, it will take some time to run some particular post checks, right? Maybe 1 second or 2 second, right? In meantime, it will show you a ready state. Okay, so that's the reason you have to keep eye. Now you can see it is an error state. Why? Because it took some time, it tried for some time, 3 times it started restarting, but still it is an error state. Okay, you can say again it will try to restart. You got a crash loopback of error, which means that tried for multiple times, but still there is an error. That is called as crashed loopback of error. Okay, error in the sense it's normal error status. When it is going on, it is showing you the status as error. So how many status we have seen right now? Running, error, crash loopback off. Okay, so you can see it is keep on trying it. Okay, now let's see the problem. Which container it is, I don't know. For example, let's say even I cannot predict, because maybe the first container got created or the second container got created. Okay, we doesn't know, right? 1 out of 2 in the sense one container was created successfully, another container was not created successfully. How will you come to know? First and foremost command which you have to give is nothing but describe. Okay, so kubectl describe your pod. Okay, so pod, and the pod name is test-pod. You can see here everything went smooth. You can see here this. First of all, try to understand it is scheduled, okay, to this particular compute node. After that, it is trying to pull the image. Why? Because nginx 1.19.0 is there, but we don't have the image called an nginx colon latest. So that's the reason it got pulled. So it took some time. After that pulled, you can say successfully pulled image. It took 663 milliseconds actually. Okay, less than 1 second. Okay, and after that it created a container. The first container got created, and after that it started this particular first container. We gave some name called first, right? You can see this one. Okay, so this one got created successfully. Okay, after that you can see it is trying to create another container. Failed. What is that? Image already exists. Second one it is trying to create, and it got started. But here, which one got failed? Here I got an error saying that crash loopback of error, but it doesn't tell me that whether it is a first or second container. So how can you predict like which container it is? So then when you got confused like this, go up. Here you can see the status is running. It got started. Okay, and ready is true. But here if you see the status is waiting, the reason is crash loopback of error. The reason why the status is waiting, because it is a crash loopback of error. Why? Because it got terminated. It is an error status. Reason is error. Okay, now I don't know what is an error. That error, it doesn't show you in this particular describe. Okay, it will only tell you like for what reason this particular container is not in ready state, that you identified. Okay, is there a way that I can see the logs of the container to identify what went wrong inside the container while it is getting spinned up? Let's see. Okay, yes, we can. So we have a command called kubectl logs. Okay, we have to give the uh, like let's say pod name. Okay, test pod. And if I enter this, it is telling me that you have 2 containers. It is asking you to choose one of them, which logs you want to see. Obviously, right? Say pod doesn't have any log. Pods containers inside the pod will have the logs. Okay, so do remember that point as well. So containers, if sometimes what will happen, it will show you the default. It will pick only the default container, and then it will try to show you the logs. Okay, so if you want logs from a specific container inside the pod, then we have to give the name. Which one got failed? Second, right? So now if you see, you got an error called, you can see there. What is this error? Have you ever seen this? Anyone has seen this particular error, and can someone tell me what could be the reason? Sorry, I'm not able to hear anything. Shafi, speaking something. Rajesh, Shubham, Sai, Gagan. What could be this reason? You might have worked in administration, right? Somewhere you have might have seen this. If a process is already listening on some particular port number which is already occupied, and another process is trying to start and listen on the same port number, you will get this particular error, address already in use. You can see here 0.0.0:80, it is failed. Why? Because address already in used. Okay, so which means that there is some particular port number which is already occupied by one of the service. Okay, so you cannot run another service to listen on the same port number. For that reason only this particular container was not getting started. Okay, so if my condition is satisfied what I've told, that's how, right? So you cannot run two containers on the same port number. Why? Because you cannot, it is mission impossible actually, because both the both the containers are running on a single pod. Okay, if these two containers are running on different pod, obviously that will run, you already know it, right? But the problem is, if two containers are trying to listen on the same port number, it is not possible, because simple reason, if it is really running, let's say for example, the problem is, if I try to reach to that particular pod IP address and the port number 80, to which container it should divert the traffic? That's not possible, right? Some request may go to this particular container, some request might go to this particular container, so you're not getting an appropriate data, right, from a specific container. So that's the reason. Okay, anyway, the simple logic is namespace, both are sharing the same network namespace, so that's the reason these two containers cannot communicate with each other on the same port number, or they cannot run on the same port number. Okay, applications. Okay, so that's how it is. So simple, here the process is trying to run on 80 port number, and this process is also trying to run on 80 port number which is getting blocked. Why? Because address already in use, nothing but 80 port number was already in use. Okay, that's a logic. Now we understood what is a pod. Pod is nothing but a common network and shared storage. Okay, if someone asks you, a pod is nothing but a logically grouping one or more containers to have a common network and shared storage. Okay, that is what you have to give an explanation if someone asks you what is a pod. Okay, any questions before I go further? Any questions, please? No? Okay, so let's go to the next one. So kubectl delete -f, try to delete my pods common, and then I want to delete my pod called um, multi. So this container also I'm trying to delete. So that will be done. Yeah. Now we are done with the topic called, let's say, as per yesterday's diagram, let us try to go further. See, it takes some time for you to understand this basics, so that's the reason I'm going a bit slow for you guys to understand each and every concept over here. Just a second, yeah. Now we have seen different ways of creating a pod. One is a pod with a single container, and pod with multi-containers, means more than one container. That's what we have seen. The next one is static pod. Static pod I will explain at the end of the pod, what is a concept. So I don't want to go right away, because there are some basics which you have to understand. Okay, so then I will tell about static pod. Okay, so this will be covered at the end of the pod section, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow will be the last day for the pods. Yeah, now in the pod we have created with application like containers. we have not seen what is this init containers and ephemeral containers. To ephemeral containers are to debug. This is like init containers. So let us try to understand what is this init container. Generally, we have init containers where you will be specifying your applications, how to run, what should be the port number, everything you will specify. That's cool. Now, what is the intention of using this init containers? What is the purpose? Why I need this particular init containers? Okay. So if you try to understand, init containers are nothing but initializing containers. Initializing container in the sense, there could be some situations where before starting your actual application, I need some things to be done on my particular pod. Could be, right? There could be some situations where before my actual application is running, which is needed, some particular things which are needed for my actual applications, that I want to set it from my init container. Okay, so that my container will be up and running without any issues. Okay, this init containers, once the job has been done, so now I will write whatever it is needed, like how you write in your container section, right? Same things you will be writing in the init container section as well. Okay, now what will happen to that container once a task has been done successfully? It will go into a completed state. It will not be running. You should not expect your init containers to be running in the background. Init containers responsibility is to only initialize the container and do the job and done. That's it. Okay, so that is called as init containers. So if you fall into a situation where you could be, right, when you're trying to run your applications in the production or somewhere, you might fall into a situation where before my actual container is running, let's say for example your Java. Okay, before running your Java applications, you need to do some fine tuning changes in the RAM settings and your kernel parameters changes and all, right? So those things you will be writing in the init container. That container will do the necessary changes on your kernel, on your base operating system kernel of that particular node with that particular parameters. Once a job is done, then your actual containers will get started. So which containers will get started first? Init containers will get created first. If something goes wrong in the init container, your main containers will not get started. Okay, that's one thing you have to remember. Only if init containers are successful, then only your actual containers will get created. Okay, and this init containers will be created first, and then the containers will get created at the last. Okay, this will be in running status. All the applications which are written under this will be in running state. All the applications which you write or the task which you write under this particular init container will do the job and it will go into a completed state. Okay, we have seen different states of your pod, right? Running, error, crash to backup, error. Now you will see a state like completed. Okay, completed in the sense it's not an error. The job which is assigned to that particular container was done. Okay, so that's how it is. Ephemeral containers we will discuss later. When we discuss about static pods, I'll be talking about ephemeral containers to debug. Okay, so let's try to understand this. Sorry, Subham, you're asking something?
Yeah, Sudhir, actually, I didn't get it. Like, so, like each and every pod has a init container by like by default, or like how
No,
it
no,
is.
no, no. You have to write it. Let's say init containers. What is the responsibility? So why I have to go for it? I told you, right, there could be some situations where, let's say, I have written my actual application under the containers, my Nginx application or something like that. Before this container was created, I want some particular task to be done, maybe on base operating system kernel or something which should be stored in this particular volume. Okay, some data. Let's say you have some data present in the Git repository. You need to pull it and store it in the volume. Okay, so instead of assigning that particular task to your actual container, now you will do that is a one-time process. Now what will happen, that you will put it in the init container. The init container will go, it will clone that particular repository and it will place it in the volume. Okay, and the job of the container was done, for example. Once the job of the init container is done, now when your actual container is created, it will utilize that particular data what you stored in the volume. Okay, that is the
Okay.
intention.
So, if
Got
suppose
it?
we restart the container, or so it will restart the pod,
No,
then
no,
it will
no, no, you
will it?
cannot.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. Okay. Restarting pod in the sense your pod cannot be restarted. It's not an entity, right? It's not a physical medium which is not running on the node. No, it's only the containers which you handle. Okay.
Okay, one more question I have. Suppose if we
Let me
want to,
stop here. Just one point to add. See, pod is not an entity. So when you try to restart the containers, you will restart only the main containers. Init containers, once the job is done, you cannot handle them with restarting or something like that. Okay, start or restart, you cannot do it in the init container. Yeah, we can create multiple containers in the init as well. Okay, if you take this example, let me show you. Okay, here you can see like this, I can write multiple containers here. It doesn't mean that you need to write only one container or two containers. How you write for your normal containers, right? You can write multiple containers under this particular init as well. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I answered your question, I guess, Shafi. Not Prejudice, sorry.
so this is basically an example of a multi-container in a pod.
Yes.
Okay. So one more thing,
Multi-container, but there is a difference between containers and init containers. Last time
okay,
also we have discussed, today we discussed about multi-containers, but those containers are created by normal containers, not an init containers, right? So there is a quite difference. Okay.
oh, okay,
See, simple concept, don't get confused. If you want your containers to be up and running all the time with that applications, keep it in container section. Okay. If you want to do a specific job before your actual task is running or something like that, keep it in init container. Okay. Because we are not expecting after the job is done, we are not expecting that particular container to be up and running. Okay. If you want those kind of things, keep it in the init container. Simple. Okay.
okay,
Don't try to understand as a definition, try to understand what it is trying to do, then you can frame it as your own definition. Okay.
okay. So,
Okay.
Sudhir, as you said that if we want to like set a network among so we do it.
Mhm.
It's kind of a
Yes.
namespace in a pod, and we do it. So if we want to communicate containers in a pod, then we keep them in one pod. Suppose we want to
Yes.
trigger one pod to the another, then how we do it?
That it uses a pod IP, but the pod IPs are ephemeral. Okay. Then we have a concept called services. Okay. When I come
Okay,
across that, then you will come to know about it. Okay.
okay, okay,
That is like a load balancer. Come, you can use a DNS names to communicate because pod IP address can change at any point of time if it is restarted. Okay. Okay.
okay,
I will tell about that. When you come across the topic called service, then you will understand that concept. Okay.
okay, sure. Yeah,
Until then, assume that you have to communicate between these two pods with the pod IP address. But remember the underlying point is the pod IP address are ephemeral. If a pod is recreated, okay, if the pod is recreated, because it is not a physical entity to restart the pod, it is just a logical layer. That's it. Your container is restarted, nothing will happen to your pod. Okay, pod IP address will be the same. If a pod is deleted and recreated, then the IP address will change. If IP address changed, I cannot go to my application and always change my backend pod IP address and all, right? It is hectic for me as a developer or as a client. I cannot accept these kind of things. So then there is a solution called service where you will communicate with the DNS names. Okay.
okay,
Yeah. Hope that is clear.
yeah,
Okay. So let's take a simple example, but realistic. Okay. Now, as I told you, one container, see this container nginx containers wants index.html, which is present in the GitHub repository because developers have pushed the code to the GitHub repository. For example, let's say, let me take this, copy, and yeah, let me open this. This is my GitHub repository. I have my index.html, okay, which is written like welcome to Docker and Kubernetes demo from this particular what are the command it is. Okay, so now we are executing this. So let me modify this actually. Okay, that's okay. We can modify means I need to log in with my account. So the point is, here I will get login details. Just a second, guys. Let me give my verification code. Let me give my verification code. Sometimes I added some additional authentication actually. So that's the reason when I log in for the first time in a day or something like that, it will ask me a verification code. Oh, sorry. It's not corporate. Okay. So coming to the point, back to the point. So my intention is I have my index.html in the GitHub repository. Okay. It is a one-time process. Just I need to pull that index.html and I want to, this should be utilized by my Nginx web application. So what I've done for this, I've written a simple Ansible playbook, sorry, Ansible YAML file, which it is nothing but, this is my main container. Okay. So let me copy paste. So that will be easy for us. Okay. So I've written a definition here. How, what is this exactly and all, but yeah. We'll go to this, yeah, control plane. So if you go to the pods and let's say multi, not multi-container, init containers, okay, dot YAML, okay. Now, the sections you already know, APIs or API version, kind, metadata, spec, containers, containers, and you will be writing this and all. This volume is written, volume is this the directory which you want to mount that you have written. Now the new part is nothing but init containers. Okay, the init container section will start with init capital C containers. Okay, here how many containers you want to write, it's up to you, it's your requirement. Okay, now what we are trying to do is nothing but I have mentioned a name called install to this particular init container, and I am using an image called Alpine. Alpine is a base image, you already seen that in the Docker section, right, which is like 5.6 MB, which is like lightweight, so which is more than enough for me. So what it should run inside that particular Alpine container is nothing but, once it is created, it should run wget command. Okay, download this particular index.html, we have to give like this. Okay, and save it in the directory in the wget command hyphen capital O, and if you give the directory path, it will save under this particular directory. So this directory was actually, if you see, this directory slash work dir, which we are trying to save our index.html, is mounted to the same volume what our nginx container is using. So now this index.html, what it is downloaded from GitHub, is saved in this particular volume. Once the job is done, this container will get completed successfully. If it is having some error, it will throw you the error. What is that error and all? This container will never get created until that issue is fixed. Okay, remember these points. Okay, these are really important when someone asks you an interview. Okay, until this particular job is done successfully, this container will never get created. If it is throwing an error, it will never get created. Okay, if it is under the process of creation, it will wait until this particular container is created. Now once a job is done, the container will go into a completed state. Okay, we will see that status details and all. So this is the volume, you already know about mtdr and all. Okay, I've written a short description about it as well, how to see about this. Okay, this volume content we already seen practically how to verify it. So this is the job. So if you want a URL like this, if you want to know how to download this index.html or the URL which I need to give, okay, you can see this raw one, just click on that raw, you'll get this. Okay, give it as it is. Okay, so give it as it is, that's it. Okay, so this is how we have to download the content. Now copy link path, you can also take this and you can just copy paste here. Link path in the sense it will give you the path actually. Let's say copy parent link, you can see this path, this is how it looks. Okay, so here I have given a link in a different way, like how we have seen over there. Raw is equal to true, in the sense it will download the raw output. Okay, that's how it is. So once it is downloaded, it is saved that index.html here, and that will be utilized by my nginx. Okay, so save that and come out. Okay, done. So let's try to create kubectl create -f pods init containers. So this was created. If you see kubectl of kubectl. You can see it's in running state. Now how many you can see here? Only 1/1. I'm not able to see my init containers. You cannot see. Okay, you cannot see your init container details over here because it will be hidden. The job is done, the container section is done. Okay, that's the reason you cannot see here as a in the ready state column. You cannot see how many actual init containers are there. You have to give a describe command. kubectl describe. Now let me try to curl that first and let me show you the proof. You can see here, but this is actually a coding issue. I will try to fix it. Coding in the sense I could have added some logic to enter the command. Okay, like a HTML page or something like that. So welcome, you can see here, welcome to Docker and Kubernetes demo from, this is what I have written here. I got the same data. So that is what the job is done. So now if you want to see the what happened to actually the init containers and what is the status of it. So you can see describe. See, this is the only for the first time you are trying to know this, right? Then you will be curious to know what will be the status, where it is, how I can identify. So once you understand about this, please register in the mind or try to practice so that it will, you'll get habituated to this particular environments and how it looks. Okay, pod init hyphen demo. You can see here we have container section and we have init container sections as well. In the init container section, you can see the status is terminated. Okay, why this particular container is terminated? Because the reason is the job has been completed. The exit code is 0. What is exit code? Exit code is nothing but if it is successful, the container will show you the exit code as 0. If it is exit code is 0, the status of the container will be, the reason will be completed. Because the reason is completed, the container will get terminated because the job is done, right? That's how it is. Okay, so this is how it is. Here the status will be different because you are expecting that to be running, so it will show you in a different way. Okay, so this is how it is. From here you can understand, right? It is created, it was started, it was pulled, the image is pulled. Okay, and you can see it got started, everything. So the job has been done, then it went off. That's it. Okay, so this is how it is. So now,
So
uh, yeah, Shubham.
yeah, so Sudhir, if suppose the init container got failed, so this is the only way to find out, or
Yeah, that is the only way, and you have to look at your logs of the init container because it is running, right? See, it is under creation process. Something went wrong, so you can see that. Okay, you can see the logs. Let's say I will intentionally give you some error. Okay, let's see what will happen. Okay, let me try to remove this, or we can have something like let me modify first, and then we will try to do. Intentionally, I'm trying to do some error. What? Let's say I'll give some wrong repository here. Let's say instead of index, I'll say like in. Okay, this is not there actually. Okay,
Mhm.
in order to apply this, recreate this particular pod, there is an option called kubectl replace. Okay, hyphen force, and you can give the YAML file. Okay, what it will do, it will delete the existing pod and it will recreate. Okay, this will be an important command for you when you work as an SRE engineer or administrator of your Kubernetes cluster. Okay,
Okay.
you can see there the pod got deleted and it got created now. Now let us see the status. kubectl get pod hyphen o void. You can see now the init. You can see there is init colon crash to backup. What does it mean? Init container was expecting it to be ready with 1. Okay, so init container was went to a crash to backup error. It restarted, but still it is a crash to backup error. You can see second time it got restarted, still it is an error. Is it created that particular container? No, right? So now if I want to see this, kubectl describe pod init hyphen demo. You can see that crash to backup. It is trying to restart Alpine. Okay. If you look at the status, you can see here. Okay. Error. Reason is error. Exit code is 1. So now I understood, okay, there is some error. Exit code 1 in the sense something went wrong inside the container, right? So let's try to understand that. Okay, so to understand that, kubectl logs, okay, what is a pod? Init hyphen demo, and the container is, what is that? Install, right? You can see there, duplicate connecting to GitHub, okay? Then duplicate server 404 not found. What does anyone know what is 404 not found?
When the request cannot reach to the server.
No, it is 500 error. It comes under 500 series. 501, 502, 503, like that. 400 in the sense a client is trying to send some request which is not available. Is trying to fetch the data which is not available on the server side. For that you will get 403. If it is permission related issue, the user who is trying to communicate to the server, if he doesn't have a permission, he will get 403. Okay, so these are client specific errors, not the server side errors. From that also we can understand these are crucial for us, because it's not a server issue. It doesn't mean that you cannot tell that what do you say, GitHub server is running, not running. You cannot tell that, right? You can say connected to GitHub and the server code, like a server returns error status like 404. What you're trying to look for, it is not available. So then what you have to do, you have to recheck what you have given. Okay, so then what I will do as a part of analysis, I will try to do the describe, and I will try to understand, okay, is that my statement is correct or the command is correct. Then I understood that, okay, instead of index.html I gave here like in.html, which is wrong. Then I have to fix it. That's how you have to troubleshoot, right? In order to come to that particular point, these are the basic things which you have to verify. Okay,
Okay.
it takes few times, like it will take some time for you to understand the exact issue, but it's like a practice. That's it. Okay, got the point what I'm saying, what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
yeah, you are using I like raw output. So, what exactly it
See,
means?
raw
Like,
output in the sense simple. See, if you try to use it, you will also get it actually. Simple.
okay,
Raw output in the sense, if you try to open the browser, you will see it actually. Let me try to make it as index.html. Raw output in the sense it's this. Okay, this is how it is.
okay,
We want the raw output, right? Okay, here
okay,
also you can see it in the GitHub raw. Okay, it will show you that. Okay,
yeah,
so
Then,
yeah,
yeah. So then we need to configure the SSH configuration for do download those things.
no, only duplicate command. Duplicate by default you will get it in Alpen image. Okay,
Okay, okay, got it.
nothing, no need to install anything. Waste of time, right? No need of necessary. Our intention is only to pull the data. That's it. Okay, we are not trying to do anything else. Okay. So just I'm trying to modify the code. Okay, um, to tell you that if you modify here, it doesn't mean that. Let me try to recreate the container by adding this particular code. I just want to prove you one thing. It's not a dynamic update. It's one-time process. Okay, just I want to prove that. Okay, let me try to create a pod. Again, same replace. Okay. Now the container will get created successfully. Let's verify kubectl get that pod hyphen void. So you can see it's running successfully. If I try to do curl, I'll get the data what is available right now. What is available, that data has been pulled and it is saved in the index variable. Now the container job is done. Now if I modify something in the GitHub, will that get updated in my container? Does anyone can answer this?
No, it was not updated in the.
Hmm?
It was not updated. Why means it was stored in the temporary volume. Every time it want download.
Okay. Sorry, I missed it. Sorry. Can you repeat once again?
It was stored in our temporary volume, so it was not updated.
Temporary volume in the sense, okay, that's fine. It is, so you mean to say that since it's already downloaded and the job of the container has been done, it's not running in the background, right? To always try to pull this particular data. Okay. You understood?
Yeah.
Now I have committed it. The code has been committed. You can see the latest commit is 12 seconds ago. This index.html file has been modified. And now this is the content. Okay. Now this is the content, which means that if you see the raw data, it looks like, oh, sorry. Still, why it is showing you this? It's raw data, right? Is it committed? Yeah, it's committed. Sorry. Yeah, modified index.html. If I see this. Okay, let me see. Yeah. So the job is already done, so you cannot get the dynamic updates. For that, you have to follow a different approach. You have to create as a container, not as an init container. So you have to understand the requirement, and then you have to decide whether it should be under init container or container section. Okay, you got the point what I'm saying? If it is a continuous process that should be monitored to fetch the data, then this is not a right solution. What I've told, init container may not be a right solution. If it is a one-time process and that should be done only for the first time before your actual container is running, then my solution is correct. Init container is correct. Okay. So this point you have to remember always. Okay. So yeah, let me try to recreate this. So anyway, I'm not getting the latest update. Okay. So I have to recreate this. For example, let's say if I recreate, the pod is getting recreated. So init container will try to fetch the latest data. Okay. Let's wait. It's running right now. So if I try to call the IP of 83 right now, oh, it's not getting updated. How come? What happened to this then? This commit, it is in master branch. Okay. Why it is showing like master? It should be main branch. What is this?
Might be URL got changed, I thought.
No, the URL is fine. It's not problem with the URL. The same repository. I just committed just now. Okay. Just understand. Okay, let me open this. Master branch. That's fine. Volume, the pod is getting recreated, so nothing will be stored in the volume. So index.html. Try to pick this. I'm seeing here as well. That is not getting updated. So that's where I'm getting confused. A second, there could be some minor issue. Let's see. Here you can see, right? Now it's getting reflected. What happened to the last time? Does it took some time? Yeah, now it's okay, right? Now we can see this. So I have to recreate it. Okay. So now if I try to get the status of my pod, let me try to do a curl on 84 IP. Yeah, what happened to this? Let me delete the pod first. Delete. Okay. Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes.
Sudhir, can you log in into the, do the exec command like we did in the containers earlier and see the logs, what has been
Yeah. We
downloaded?
can. We can. But the problem is, init container once the job is done, you cannot exec. You got the point?
Okay. Yeah,
It
yeah.
will be in completed state, right? That's a major problem as well. Okay,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
you got the point, right? What I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, what is the difference between minus f and minus minus force? Minus f is
See,
force
minus
only.
minus force, it's not intentionally done for this. Okay, force in the sense when I'm trying to do in something, it will block me, saying that a resource is already exist or something like that. I know that the resources exist, but still I want to proceed. Then we need to give force. Okay.
Okay, so minus f is not force.
No, no, no. It's for like file path. File path. Where is your
Uh,
YAML? That's a path.
okay, okay,
Okay.
okay,
If not, I would have given hyphen hyphen force, right?
okay.
So let's verify the same IP. Yeah, that's fine. IP with fine. Yeah, now I got it. Okay. So this maybe some time it took some time to fetch the data, not fetching the data, maybe some error. I don't know why the GitHub is also shown in the late, like some delay in showing my commit. Okay. Yeah. So this is how it is. I can see now. So the data got fetched. It is like static. It's not dynamic. So that job will be done. The init container, once the job is done, it cannot monitor the changes. Okay. Always keep a note of it. Init container's job is only to do the one-time process, not the continuous process. If it is a continuous process, then you have to place your container as a you have to put your container in the container section, not in the init container section. Okay, just remember this point. Okay, that's all for today. So if you have any questions, we can stay back, or else we can wind up for today.